Okay, so I've got my ground floor ceiling plan, which you can see is it's going to show my ceiling. I know it will, but it's not very clear that the ceiling's there. So I'll just show you one little thing. If you want to find the ceiling and you in a floor plan, sorry, a reflected ceiling plan, do you remember the option key in Revit? Tab. So the option key is tab, and so if I move to the edge of the wall, guys over there who are talking, can you stop talking please? Okay, so using tab, I can cycle through, so pressing tab the first time, I get something else. I don't want that, so tab again. And now I can tell I've got the ceiling. It tells me next to the cursor, and also if you look down the bottom left corner, I can see it's telling me that I've got the ceiling highlighted. So now I'll click, and I know the ceiling is selected. Yeah, sure. Yep, okay, so again, I'm just moving my cursor to the edge of my ceiling. I know it's there, so it's highlighting the wall though. Before I click anywhere, I'm going to press tab. It's giving me a chain of walls or lines. I don't want that, so I'll click again, tab. And this time it's highlighted my ceiling, but I still have to left click to select it. So it's a good idea to practice that using tab. That's right. Yeah, the object, that I want. That's right, exactly. Okay, so I know the ceiling is there and it's visible, and so I'm going to go now to the Architecture tab and click on Component to bring in a light. So I'll click Component. Yeah, I'll save it. And then go to Load Family. And then go to the, let's actually start with the default library. So I'm going to leave it in the library that it started with and go to the lighting folder. And then you'll see architectural, where most of them live. And then, of course, we're working with interiors, so internal. And then you can see all these basic light types, which you might already remember from the ones that are up on the board. Very similar. So I've got ceiling lights. Oh yeah, these are set up to light, automatically, Okay, so we've got some basic light types, mostly ceiling lights. So I've got this one called Downlight Recessed Can, which is, it's not an LED, but we can make it work like one. So I'll start with that. So Downlight Recessed Can is just a downlight, obviously recessed. So I'll double click. And then I can see that can on the ceiling plan as I go to place it. That easy. So I'll put in a few of those. 1, 2, 3. Then I'll go to place it in, just as an example, in this room here, where I know I don't have a ceiling. I notice that it's not going to let me place a light there. But in the other room where I do have a ceiling, I can place a light. So that's why I spent so long focusing on ceilings. Even if the ceiling is there, if you can't see it, you can't place a light on it. So you need to both have a ceiling, but also make sure it's visible.
That's by highlighting.
Oh, you don't? No, I just did that so that you could see that it was visible.
Oh, okay.
No, you don't have to select it. Sorry. Okay, so now I'll go and get another kind of light. So back to Load Family. And again, I'll go to that same lighting folder, Architectural, Internal, and we'll get another kind of downlight. This one's a spotlight. So a spotlight in Revit really just is a light that you can target. It's a targeted light. So it's going to point in a certain direction. And notice if you look at the preview over there, it shows you these two cones. So that gives you an idea of the distribution of the light. We'll go further with that when I start rendering. So I'm just going to place this one near the wall over here. And then maybe I'll get some pendant lights. So back to Load Family again. And then again in Lighting, Architectural, Internal. And we've got a few different pendant lights there. That one's a new one actually, the LED, which is good. That's a new one they put in with 2018, but I won't use that. I'll just start with one of the other pendants. Which one here? hemisphere. Nice simple one. Okay, so maybe I'll put that a bit further from the others so we can see how that works by itself.
And with the pendant light, we need to know the height as well.
It's already set up with one, but yeah, if you want to adjust it, have a look at it in section, and I'll make another section view, so don't be afraid to make as many sections as you think you need to see the interior. And then here we've got my new section, section 3. And so now we can see that pendant light is already set to be a certain distance coming down from the ceiling. So a pendant, it's like something hanging from a chain. It's hanging down. Yeah, that's right. When you select it, there are settings to adjust that, but we'll look at that later. And you can see there, that's the spotlight. It's also projecting from the ceiling, or mounted on the ceiling. But the recessed lights we can't see because they're obviously recessed into the ceiling. But, well, what do you think you could do to see those recessed lights? Sorry? No, you wouldn't want to do that. They're recessed for a reason. We want to keep them like that. Just thinking about the view settings. What's a view setting that we could use? Exactly, wireframe. That's good if you're thinking of that. So again, remember, wireframe is a view setting you have on the view control bar there. That's right. So you can see through now, and there are my recessed lights. Okay, now to start looking at these and render, I need to make a new view type that we've done a little bit, but I know not a lot, so I'll spend a bit of time on that. The camera tool is what you use to make perspective views in Revit. If that's not clear to you, camera and perspective basically means the same thing. So here, clicking on the down arrow next to the house, we have camera. If you go to the View tab, you also have the 3D views and camera. You might remember that from before. So I'm going to go through camera views in much more detail later. For now, I'll just click on that camera tool and click a point where I want my camera to be, where I'm taking my picture from, and then I'll click the point I'm looking towards on my target. Remember, I'm on the ground floor level, so we'll see that area where I've placed the lights. I can't see them because they're just above my view area. Oh, we'll see that too. Yeah, no, we'll see all of that. So that's right, I'm going to adjust it like you're saying. So here, we can adjust that field of view, and there are my lights. I'll bring it out in all directions. Oh, yeah, good idea. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so in realistic, you can actually, I know what you're thinking, you can actually turn the lights on. But that's called real-time lighting. It's going to push the computer a bit too far, so I won't do that. But you can, yeah. Okay, so yeah, well, you've got a few different options. Real-time lighting is actually not that difficult with these computers, but we'll look at that later. For now, I'm just going to click on the teapot. Yep. So in Autodesk software, teapot means render. So on the View tab, it's an old historical thing because with 3ds Max, they wanted to, yeah, kind of, yeah. It's a modelling thing, but yeah, yeah. Basically, teapots used to be a hard thing to make many years ago. Yes. So they put a tool in for it. Okay, so on the View tab, you've got that teapot for render. It's also down on the View control bar. So that brings up the rendering dialog box. And all I'm going to do here is change the lighting option from exterior sun only to interior artificial only. Just to give you a tip, sun artificial, which everyone goes for at first, is the most difficult. Because the sun is far, far brighter than any man-made light source, even lighthouses and things. It's super bright. So artificial only. Start with that. Okay, so when you then click render, you will see the effect of those lights. There we go. That's it. It does a lot of the rendering for you.
But we can change the how far the light.
Oh, yeah. We'll go into that in a moment. So, at the moment, though, it's a bit dark.
Yeah.
So, anyone who's done photography, what do you do when your photos are too dark? Exposure, that's right. Brightness is the right idea, but yeah, exposure. So, notice how down the bottom, we've got exactly that, adjust exposure. So it's great these days. Everyone's got a camera in their phone, and you often have photo editing tools that have the same options. So you might have already done a lot of this, or in Photoshop. So here, I'm just going to drag that slider a little bit to the left, click apply, much brighter. Oh, it is, that's right. Yeah, that's right, exactly. But yeah, this is great, even just to get the shadows worked out. Oh, yes, yeah. So that's right. So if you want to keep this probably will be adjusted. But yeah, let's say we want to keep it. Down the bottom, just click Save to Project. And that will save it in the Revit file. But if you want to work on it in Photoshop, you need to click Export and save it as a JPEG or whatever format. PNG is a great one. So I'll just save this. Well, actually, I don't care, so I'm going to save it. Yeah, mainly for rendering. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. It's even good just for that, just to work them out if you get a trace over it. Even. Yeah.
I draw it to spend on, but I spend 10 minutes, so I
Yeah, yeah. But look, there's an art to drawing shadows. Yeah.
it's like on an intellectual level, I understand it, but I can't.
Yeah, yeah. But sometimes your hands do it. After a while, your hands will do it naturally. Yeah. Especially the ambient shadows. We'll talk about that. So, okay, so that's a basic setup for lighting. But then, yeah. So if we have a look at the lights, though, we can just have a bit of a look at some of the light properties. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just want to get you started. I'm going to select one of these lights and then go to Edit Type. So then you'll see if I scroll down, it's always at the bottom, you've got all the lighting properties. And the reason I'm showing you this is mainly so that you avoid the wrong ones. The one that people often start with is this light loss factor. Leave that alone. That's getting into physics of lighting, which you don't need to worry about. The one below it, initial intensity, that's your main brightness control. So click on that, and you can see it's still a bit strange. Well, or is it? It's on wattage. Do you think wattage tells you how bright a light is? In the old days, when they used to put watts on the bulbs, gives you an idea. But if you notice that lights, the very different wattages, can have the same brightness. Yeah, colour, that's another thing. So wattage doesn't tell you the brightness, that tells you the power consumption. And they're different things. Different lights have different efficiencies. Yep, that's right. That's what you want to think about. A single value that will tell you how bright the light is, and the standard these days is lumens. So this one, luminous flux, don't worry about what that means. Over here you can see it's on lumens, LM, it means lumens. And so, to help me understand that, when I was first learning about lighting, I actually started with candelas. Candelas, the one underneath. Now candelas is just the older unit, that's the imperial one. Oh, that's the temperature, we'll get into that, that's different. Yep. So candelas are really easy to understand because a candela is the brightness of a candle, roughly. Yeah, it is. That's where it comes from. So that's the old imperial measurement. Lumens are just the new metric equivalent. Yep. So they're nice and easy to work with, and before long you'll get used to some standard values for lumens. So I'm going to tell you 1,000 is a good sort of medium that you'll often... yeah, exactly. Exactly, exactly. You can, yep. And even some light bulbs these days, I've seen they put the lumens on as well as the wattage. So, yeah, now those values can be put in, but with Revit, again, there are some standard values that you should maybe keep in mind. And again, 1,000 is sort of a low medium. You can see here this is a bit lower, but that's okay because I've got a few lights. So like I was saying, as you add more lights, then you might make each of those lights not so bright.
So we go lower in the number.
You can, yeah, that's right, you will. Often, yeah. And this is for rendering more than, sorry? Each, yeah. Oh, well, this is effectively changing a group because, remember, I'm editing that downlight recessed can. I haven't duplicated it, so they'll all change. But they each have that number of lumens. Yeah. So let's change it. I'll make it 200 and something, 255. And then I'll just go back, render again, and they're not so bright. Now that spotlight is really overpowering it, so I might just delete that one for now, and then I'll go back and render, and the effect will be really noticeable. So they're not doing very much. The pendant light is giving most of the lighting there. So back to that light, let's go and take it right up. So I'll make it 2000. Straight away, noticeable. Yep. Yeah, you can go a fair bit higher than that, but again, around 1,000 to start with is a good starting point. Yeah. Yeah, well that's the colour, so that's the last thing I'll show you. So, here again, edit type. Well, they're warm. I like cool in some cases, but yeah, I know warm is back in. Oh yeah, residential, and even for hospitality, yeah, but depends what you're trying to do. So here with the option below the lumens, we've got the colour. It says initial colour, but just think of it as the colour.
So we just played with the initial
intensity. Yeah. So the only other property I'm going to show you is this one, initial colour. Click on that, and you see a preview of what that lighting temperature would be. So it's at the moment on incandescent, which is the older style of light bulb, which was really warm and probably too warm for most people. So then you've got these nice presets, which are really good to get started with on your lighting temperatures. So neutral is around 5,000. So yeah, it's actually a bit off that, but that's close enough. So you can see there it's actually still a little bit orange, but that is roughly neutral. But let's go for a more noticeable effect. I'm going to go up to this one, D65 reference white, which is 6500, and that's a much cooler light. So higher is cooler. Higher temperature is a cooler colour. So it's closer to blue, and then warmer. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah, we're dealing with temperatures, much higher than we normally work with. So, so then going down to some of the others that are standard, metal halide is a fairly warm one. It's just a type of light. They're for industrial things usually. And HPS is another similar one, very warm light. Then xenon, it's a really cool one. So you've got those really good presets. And anything above 6,000 you will notice it is much cooler. So, exactly. So you can see it here on the right. It is cooler than the one on the left, which is still warm.
If you went down to 1,000,
really warm. That's right. Yeah, too warm. Yeah. So that's important for interiors, and you can vary those. You don't want to mix them too much, but some people who've got lots of experience I've seen have done a great job in some projects I've seen recently, mixing some warm and cool lights. But often you want to maybe go with one or the other. And again, so you've got all those options in all of your lighting families in Revit. So we'll look at distribution later. You can see here the distribution is set in that light already. It's the shape of the light. So in this case it's a cone, but it could be a sphere, or You can do them coming from a line, but that's why I don't want to show it to you now, because linear lights can be a bit harder with Revit just because of it's a technical issue with rendering. Unfortunately, if you need to do, I know everyone wants to do strip lighting these days, and that's a good thing, but there are some technical issues with the way the rendering engine in Revit works with linear lights. So we'll come back to that, but otherwise those lighting families work really well. So I might just get some others from the library which are similar. Go back to load family. Again, default folder is pretty good. So we've got the troffer lights. They're like, almost like fluorescent fixtures. So these again will have a spot type of distribution, I think. And I will then put in another one, so I can show you some of the more good ones to start with. So the last one I want to show you is studio light. So studio lights are not those nice, film set lights that you see all in the antique shops and things that they try to sell you for $1,000. That are beautiful lights, but they're spotlights. This studio light is a special light that Revit has. That's really good just to add extra light to your space. So it's specifically for rendering. So it's just a floating sphere. So I'll go back into the 3D view, and you can see there it's just a floating sphere in the middle of the space.
On the wall.
In the air.
Just to make it brighter.
That's right. So just for rendering, you can add extra light to your interiors with that, and you won't see it. When you render, you won't see this sphere. We're just going to make everything brighter.
So there's like a spot when you use the dodge tool.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's just a trick for rendering, but it can help with the renders. Oh yeah, so it's in the library. It's just called Studio Light. So I just got it the same way. I'll show you again. Yep. Studio Light. No, they're from the point that you place it. But just to give you a tip, having soft shadows. Exactly, yeah, that's it. And having lots of light sources and therefore getting soft shadows can actually add a lot of realism, rather than having these really hard-edged direct shadows that you often do when you're drawing.
And I often find a lot of people putting way too many lights.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah, absolutely.
So it's better to have the studio lights and get the lighting right.
Here, when the initial intensity,
Mm-hmm.
so the higher the number, the brighter the light.
That's right. The higher the lumens, the brighter it is. But then the higher the temperature, the cooler it is. So that should be more than enough to get you started with lighting. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, sure. So when you select the light, then you just go to Edit Type, and then scroll down. You've got all the properties there at the bottom. So no one's asked about coloured lighting, which is, I know, something interior people often want to do. That's okay. Look at that later. We'll do that next week. That's fine. That's fine. That's plenty, I think. Yeah, that's good. No, but just maybe think about the different options, because you would have seen with the cool and the warm lights, we couldn't choose green or purple. You put a filter on for that. Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll look at that later. Yeah. So, oh yes, it'll still work, but it'll be different. It'll absorb more light. Darker colours absorb more of the spectrum and reflect less. Bit of both. So yeah, so you factor in the material and then increase your intensity, but also you can adjust the exposure, because your eyes naturally do this in the real world. They dilate and contract your pupils, just like a camera does. to let more or less light in. So it's okay if you're adjusting the exposure to change the brightness. That's a real world effect. It's fine.